Hello, and welcome to a live episode of This is Political. I'm Noam, and this is Political. Tonight, we're going to tune in live to the final, I guess it is, the final NDP leadership debate, and check that out, see who has what to say, and where things go from here in the race. And thank you for tuning in. If you're joining, if it's the first time, then please consider subscribing. And if you're a regular viewer, then thanks so much for watching the debate with me tonight. Or if you're tuning in after the fact, because I will be leaving this live stream up on the channel, then thanks for watching it to catch up on the debate and see what happens. We're going to check out what each of the candidates has to say, and I will be reacting live. I'm going to try and let the candidates have as much of the talk time as I can, but obviously, if you're here to watch it with me, then you want to know what I have to say. You want to know where I stand on what is being discussed as well, and we'll watch it together. Please join in the conversation in the live chat, and we'll all get to exchange thoughts on how each of the candidates is doing in the race so far and in the debate as we watch it. Obviously, I want to acknowledge, first of all, that it's really shameful that there are going to be one or two, depending on how you look at it, missing participants in the debate and in the race. And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that the NDP is letting a private panel of a couple of executive party members determine who is and isn't a valid candidate and not leaving that decision to the members. I would have liked to have seen Eve Engler in this race, and if not for him, then his wife, who is also a prominent author and academic in Canadian society, it would have been good to have her on this stage and in this race, given that for whatever reason they didn't want Eve Engler himself to be there. Both have been disqualified, and it's looking like the party is going to get their way on that. And so that's where that stands on that as an issue. But we move ahead. There are the 5 candidates that have been approved and have met all of the qualifications to continue to the ballot stage. I am a member of the NDP. It's been a couple of years since I've been able to say that, but I am now a member again of the party after many years away. That's not to say that I am going to be offering purely partisan takes. Anyone who has known me long enough to know my history with the NDP knows that there are very good disagreements that I have with the party and with people in the party about politics and policy. But it is to say that I think that for the moment, it's looking like this is going to be the vehicle through which we're going to be able to drive a left-wing agenda in Canada to start to have some real prominence. And I have started this project, and I have started everything that I am trying to do with my municipal campaign in order to try and have a left-wing vision be able to be realized in Canada. And I'm hoping at this point that we can see the NDP be maybe a vehicle for that. If it looks like that isn't going to be what happens, then obviously we'll need to reevaluate going forward. But for the time being, yes, I'm a member of the party. I will be voting in the leadership race. In the next week or two, I'll be putting out a video discussing where I stand on the race and what my ballot rankings are going to be. I'm pretty sure I know who 1 and 2 are likely to be at this point. I'm not entirely sure from there, but we'll figure it out and we'll see as we go forward. I'm going to pull up the debate feed so that we can make sure that we're watching it as soon as it gets started. I believe it's supposed to start at 8 o'clock. And so bear with me for a second here while I do that. Debate. I think that the thing to keep in mind with the leadership race up to this point is that they haven't really taken a lot of the opportunities that they have had. They have done quite a few debates. There was the one other official party one, but then there was the debate on Palestine. There was an Ontario NDP youth held a debate. There was a debate hosted by the northern representatives of the party. There was debate. There was forums at a couple of different riding EDAs. So they have had opportunities where they are together in a room, either virtually or in person, up until now. And it's really interesting that at this point, that up to this point, they have not taken the opportunity to really go after each other. Um, 1 second here. Because the debate was tonight, right? No, here it is. Okay, here we go. Here's the debate. I'm pulling it up right now. Um, Now I'm gonna not actually bring it in until I'm not gonna
Of the five
have it
potential leaders, it is very
until we actually are listening to the actual debate, so that we can talk here as we go. But certainly, it's going to be an interesting one to watch because it is their final opportunity to really kind of go after each other um, on any significant issues. And this is a leadership race where there are significant policy differences that have sprung up and differences in how each of them seems to view the role of a party leader and of what the NDP should really be looking to do. So we're gonna have to really think seriously as party members or as Canadians interested in a left wing movement in bringing together the best way of doing this because they have produced some of these differences, but they're not taking the opportunity to actually talk about what those are in these kinds of forums. And so it's creating this effect of a race that has been really, really interesting if you're paying attention to the weeds of it and the ins and outs, but on a surface level looks very boring because they're all, at least publicly in these kinds of big moments, saying very, very similar things. So it'll be interesting to see whether they take the opportunity in this debate to separate themselves from each other a little bit more. That's going to be something that is really might be the only opportunity some of them have at this point to shake things up and to cause differences in the race that could potentially shake up what seems to be what is happening in this race, which appears to be Avi Lewis running away with it. In terms of endorsements, in terms of fundraising, in terms of just public support, everything that I've seen, and I've been paying quite a bit of attention, has been really indicating that Avi Lewis is very clearly the one to beat at this point in the race. And he is the only one who has been doing some of that work of talking about differences between himself and other contenders in a real kind of differentiating way that feels genuine and like there is actual purpose and strategy fundamentally behind it. I guess you could say something similar about Rob Ashton on the issue of workers and some of the things that he said recently about really being the candidate who has that kind of personal experience. But they all, I think, in this race have had working experience. They are all on very good terms with unions. There's been endorsements across the board from the labor movement. And so it would be one thing, I think, if that were the case, if the entire labor movement had really lined up behind Rob Ashton, but that doesn't seem to have been what has ended up happening, at least in terms of what is publicly available information from that kind of place. And so that creates a situation where there's a very left-wing working class element to the support of Avi Lewis. There's a very Heather McPherson certainly has her backers within the labor community, within the senior positions within the labor community. And so that has created some of that interesting dynamic as well. So it looks like the debate should be getting started here. Let's tune in to exactly what is being said by these commentators.
It's not
we'll
all on
keep
its
an eye
own.
on
It
the
includes
debate.
so many
I
things.
will
The cost
be,
of,
as I said earlier,
childcare,
reacting
the cost
as
of,
we
sending
go,
your
but I
kids to the
will
university,
also
the
be
cost of
trying to let
pharmaceuticals, all
the
those kinds of
candidates
things, right?
themselves
So it becomes a bit of a
have
grab bag.
most
So just,
of the
Pierre Poilievre and the
time
Conservatives
without
have said how they're going to keep
as
talking
much as
about
possible.
those issues.
But obviously, if you're wanting to watch
it comes to so many
just the
other
debate,
issues that
then
you can
there
get
are
into it
feeds
from different
available for
angles.
that.
And I do think that is an
I
opportunity for the
assume that if
NDP.
you're here,
But
you're
going back to what
wanting
Melanie
to
said, it's about whether they are going to be listened to, seen as a
interact.
credible option. Because
You're
while they're
wanting to
not
share
seen as
your
a credible
thoughts, you're wanting
option,
to hear my
they're
thoughts,
just not going
you're
to
wanting
get
to have the
that.
experience
They're just not going to be
of watching
considered to
this
be
debate
in the
together.
running to
So
deal with the
let's
issue.
do
And I think
that.
that's going to be the big challenge for them.
Mathieu, je pense à l'ère de Jack Layton. Et sous Jack Layton, le NPD aspirait clairement à vraiment servir d'alternative gouvernementale. Hein. C'était certainement pas le cas avec Jagmeet Singh, qui, au lieu plutôt aller chercher à obtenir des concessions de la part du gouvernement Trudeau. Évidemment, le contexte maintenant est tout autre. On voit que le gouvernement Carney réussit pour l'instant à collaborer davantage avec les conservateurs. Étant donné cette nouvelle donne, à quoi doit aspirer le parti une fois qu'il aura un nouveau chef?
Watch the official live stream. There we go, giving credit to the NDP watching their official live stream. So as I've been saying, what's going to be really interesting tonight in this debate is that it's really their final opportunity to have the moment of really differentiating themselves in this race, because up until now in these debates, in these forums where they have all been in the same place, either virtually or in person, they haven't taken the opportunity to really, in a forceful way, articulate their differences. And so it's a race that from the outside, if you haven't been paying attention to the individual policies and the individual dynamics that have been kind of at play under the surface, if you've only been tuning into these big moments, then you will likely have this experience of this being a really tame leadership race, when in fact it's actually been quite forcefully different in the way that the candidates have presented themselves and their visions for the party and policy going forward. And so this is going to be their real opportunity to differentiate themselves and make that clear in a kind of forceful way. And keep in mind that, like, inter-party fighting is good. It helps strengthen the overall party when you have to fight out these differences.
Good evening and welcome to
yourselves
the final debate
first.
of the federal NDP
The best experiences of this are when parties allow that to happen and then are able to come together afterwards under the
for this evening.
vision that has come out of that race,
we are
which
coming
is
to you
never
live from
of
New
just one
Westminster,
candidate.
British Columbia, on unceded and unsurrendered lands of the Halkomelem speaking people. I also recognize the Kalite First Nation and all Coast Salish people on whose traditional territories we gather tonight. So thank you for that. We also, though, want to acknowledge the horrific attack in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. Our thoughts are with the victims, their loved ones, and the entire community as they grapple with the shock and the loss.
Absolutely.
Now, in moments like this, we are reminded of the importance of coming together and caring for each other. I invite each of you to join us in a moment of silence. Thank you for that. Let's begin now. Tonight, these leadership contestants will debate the priorities of members and communities right across this country.
I will be interjecting as I have things to say, but I am going to try and let this largely be an experience
here's what they range
where
from:
we can hear
economic
what the
security
candidates
and
are
national
saying.
sovereignty, the future and role of the party, rebuilding the party, foreign affairs and humanitarian aid, and energy and the environment. So the contestants here, they knew those themes in advance. What they did not know the specific questions. They didn't know them, their teams didn't know them. They're all here in my head, and they could change throughout the debate. So everybody be ready tonight. It's going to be a fun evening, so everybody take a breath. Now it's my pleasure to welcome the candidates here. We will introduce first Avi Lewis, Heather McPherson, Rob Ashton, Tony McQuail, and Tennille Johnston. So welcome, everyone. I'm really happy to be here with you. It's an honor for me to moderate this debate. The debate will
It'll be
run 90
interesting to
minutes,
see how they
mostly
each...
in English. There is one French section, though. We will start with opening statements from each of the candidates, and then we'll move through those themes.
The
Now,
first
in
debate
each
was
theme,
supposed
I
to
will
be the
ask
French
one
debate, but
question
none of
to
them
each of the
can speak
candidates.
French
They'll have
properly,
45 seconds to
so
answer
they
that
mostly
individually.
debated in English
After
anyway,
that, there will be an open
which is kind of sad, but
debate section. I will also prompt in that
we are
open
where we
debate
are.
section, if it's going a little bit slower, we will move it right along and we will encourage discussion that way. Now, before we end, each candidate will also get an individual question tailored to their experience, to their platform, to their campaign. Nobody knows what that is. I will get that at the end. And then, of course, we will finish with closing statements. Now, enough from me. Let's start with opening remarks. And Heather McPherson, your 45 seconds starts right now.
Merci et bienvenue. This is an important moment in time for our party. This is an important moment in time for our country. You know, the world is uncertain, families are struggling, and working class Canadians are getting further and further behind. You know, today you will see all 5 of us agree on a lot of things. We are New Democrats, and we all believe in fairness, in equity, in looking out for your neighbor. So this race isn't about debating those values. It's about who can turn them into wins for people. You know, Canadians are depending on
The
us to
problem
have their
with this
backs.
argument from Heather McPherson is that she was a part of the Jagmeet Singh NDP leadership team. We're going to try refreshing and hoping that.
You know, Canadians are depending on us to have their backs. To do what
she was
we
a
need
part
to do,
of
to
the
do what we need to do,
Jagmeet Singh
we need more of
NDP
us.
leadership
I
team
know how to win.
that
I know how to
lost
build support.
again and
I know
again
how to
and
beat
again and
conservatives.
again, and
We
she's
need a leader who can
proposing
win. We need a leader who can
working
rebuild,
in the
and
same
I
way
am
as a
that
party,
leader.
and it didn't
And
work.
you're bang on time
It
with
just
that 45
didn't
seconds.
work.
So that is a good start to this. Avi Lewis, you're up next.
Friends, we're at a fork in the road. Donald Trump is stomping all over the world, stoking fear and insecurity. And while Mark Carney defies him in Davos, at home, liberals and Tories are caving to the U.S. and letting corporations hoard profits and hike the price of everything. So now the NDP has a clear choice. The same approach that brought us to an historic low in the last election, or a new vision that is unmistakably bold and courageous. Our campaign has proved this path is popular and
I'm trying to
win.
fix this
We've signed up
glitching
members
issue,
in 338 federal
we will
ridings,
continue
broken
as
fundraising
we
records, and hosted huge events packed with hundreds of people from the length and breadth of this land. Our party's comeback has already begun.
Okay, not bad. Only a couple seconds over, but we'll let you have that, Mr. Lewis. We are now going to go to Rob Ashton.
That was good. I liked
Tonight
Avi
you'll hear a
Lewis's
lot of
response
agreement
there.
on some really
I mean,
great
but once
policy.
again, we need some.
But unless we actually lead this country, those policies won't happen. And I'm tired of being Canada's social conscience. You see, our party's drifted away from the working class, and the working class just doesn't see themselves in us anymore. So they went and found another home. And so we need to bring them back. Otherwise, our ideas will remain just that, ideas. That's why I want to bring the party back to its working class roots, so we can win back the seats that we've lost and win a whole lot more.
Rob Ashton, thank you. And I'm going to take those 5 seconds from you because I can gab through those. Tennille Johnston, you're next.
Awesome. Thank you
This
so
is
much. I'm
weird.
Tennille
This
Johnston, a
constant
social worker,
talking
a city
about the
councillor from
timing
Campbell River, BC, and the first
you're
Indigenous
better
person
than that,
ever to be represented on a
Hannah,
federal leadership ballot in Canadian political history. And I'm so grateful that piece of history now lives with the NDP. I've traveled this country coast to coast to coast, and it has been absolutely amazing visiting tiny communities all over Canada. But the tragic part is that people are struggling everywhere you go. The cost of rent, groceries, gas, it's astronomical, and it just keeps going up and up and up.
Tennille Johnston has
That
impressed
in a
me
G7 country, we have over 10% of our population living in poverty. That's absolutely
more and
ridiculous.
more and more as this
That's why
race
we need
has
a
gone on.
guaranteed livable basic income. We need a wealth tax. We have to end the fossil fuel subsidies. We have to have true government to government relationships in this country with our First Nations.
Thank you, Tennille. And last
As
but
she's
not
gotten
least,
more
Tony
into some of the
I'm Tony
policy
McQuail.
talk,
I'm a
she's gotten
parent
better
and
and better and
grandparent,
better.
a farmer for over 50 years and a New Democrat
I love
for
Tony's hat.
46. Our
He's so
campaign is
charming.
focused on 4 R's: representation, dealing with the first past the post, regeneration, stop damaging and start healing the earth, redistribution, stop sucking out our collective wealth and start distributing it fairly, and redesign, shift from a corporate capitalist consumer ideology to a conservative community. As a farmer, I see our world from ground level. It's a
Someone
very
has really
different
written
perspective
Tony
from
this
those who have
good
been making
opening
destructive
statement that
decisions from the corner offices of corporate towers. We need radical change now.
is doing a good job
Tony, thank
speaking
you,
to
everybody.
his
Now we're kind of warmed up. Let's get into the
agenda,
debate portion. Here is
but
our first theme:
didn't
economic
allow him
security
to
and national sovereignty. We
go
had a few
off
of you
the way
mention
that
Donald Trump in here. A reminder:
can.
after I ask the first question here, each will have 45 seconds to respond, and then we're going to move into that open debate portion, which is 8 minutes long. So nobody has seen these questions
that's
to start
good.
off with.
8
Let's
minutes
start
of
with
open
this.
debate
The
is
topic
really
has
good
largely been
to
dominated
create
by the U.S. President Donald Trump and the tariff war, and by Prime Minister Carney's efforts to retool Canada's economy to reduce our dependence on the United States. So here's the question. If Donald Trump picks up the phone tomorrow or jumps on and posts on Truth Social threatening more tariffs to pressure Canada, as a leader, would you retaliate immediately or negotiate quietly? And if retaliation is the answer, what does it look like? Is it a targeted tariff? Is it energy? Be specific, please. So
that's
Mr.
such a
Lewis, you are
weird
first
binary
with
choice.
45 seconds.
Well, first I'd call the two Democratic socialists who have shared private meetings with Donald Trump, Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico and Sohran Mamdani from New York, and figure out how they charmed him, because that seemed to go incredibly well. I think Canada needs to stand firm and project a kind of moral clarity on the world stage that reflects an independent foreign policy and an independent domestic policy. We need a Canadian shield to Trump-proof our economy, and retaliating doesn't look like a tariff war. That's playing into the much stronger force on the other side of the border. We need to rebuild our economic independence with a Green New Deal, a Canadian Green New Deal that will create millions of good, unionized, green energy jobs and many other pieces of economic independence I hope we can talk about throughout tonight.
Heather McPherson.
He really,
Also, Donald Trump is the biggest threat that is facing our country right now, both economically and our sovereignty. And the way that we need to push back on that is to build our own economic sovereignty. You know, we need to be investing in workers. We need to be building with Canadian materials. We need to be building with good Canadian unionized jobs. You know, we need to raise wages. We need to legislate workers' rights into our laws. We need to be investing in building that infrastructure that will build up our country. You know, that's the east-west grid. That's rail. That's renewable energy. It's that investment, that economic.
Heather
sovereignty
McPherson
that will
feels
actually
to
protect us from
me
Donald Trump. That's how we fight back against Donald Trump.
Rob Ashton, 45
like
seconds.
she
I'm
felt
a
like she was
travel
going to
for
step
Colombia.
into this
I'm
and
at
is
this mill work.
surprised at having to fight.
And his biggest concern was about losing his job either in a week or in a month. And that's how a lot of Canadians feel right now. But that's because of liberals and conservatives ruling on behalf of their CEO friends and the ruling class. So we have to change that. And how are we going to change that? That's with my jobs promise. And the reason I bring that up right now is because that's how we fight Donald Trump, is by creating economic security in this country, by creating good jobs.
There's a lot
Canadian
to like
industries for
about Rob
Canadian
Ashton.
workers, by
But the
standing up
fact that
against
he
him
skipped
and finding new,
the
fairer
Middle
trade
East
partners in
Palestine
this world.
debate
And that's how you
is a
stand up for it.
problem for me.
Okay, Tony McQuail, you're 45 seconds.
It's a problem
The
for me
tariffs
as an
are an incredible
anti-Zionist Jewish
opportunity
man.
for us to
And I need
reconsider
him to
what our
answer for
economy
that
is
before I can consider putting him
relocalize
high
it
on my
and
ballot.
redesign it so that it works for Canadians and not Canadians working to enrich the global elites. We have to be thinking about sovereignty in a realistic terms. And in 2026, sovereignty is not going to come out of the barrel of a gun or out of a pipeline. It's going to come from reinvesting in education, healthcare, childcare, and regenerative agriculture to ensure that we actually can meet and are meeting the needs of Canadians inside. And we need to develop a nonviolent defense strategy that supports communities in developing unarmed civilian defense programs.
Thank you, Mr. McCray.
That's
Well
I
done.
like that
Yeah,
idea.
so if Trump called, he'd get
I
my
like-
answering machine.
I like
I'd be
so much of
busy,
what Tony has to
trying to
say.
lift the burden of economic insecurity off the backs of workers. Big oil, big telecom, these giants are recording record profits while we're not investing in Canada.
I like what a lot
Our
of them have
retaliation
to say.
strategy
I
is
like what
investing in
all of them
ourselves
have
and
to
seeing
say
the
on a lot
huge
of
worth that we
things.
are as a country within our own borders. We need to bring manufacturing and production into Canada. We need to stop sending out things like raw logs just to have that wealth created outside of our borders. Then we buy it back for more money. We truly have to invest in Canada, and we have to do it now, right down to the micro things like offering childcare. If we want to send hundreds of people back into our healthcare workforce, give them some support with taking care of their kids so they can go back to their care industry.
Okay, thank you. Everybody's bang on time. So far, I'm really happy with this group. Let's now start with the open debate for 8 minutes.
Enough. Stop
Mr.
about
Lewis,
the
I am
time.
gonna
It's
start with
weird.
you, and
You've
here's the
made your
question. I
point.
heard from all of you, we have to invest in ourselves. However, we do rely on trade with the United States under President Donald Trump. Is the United States an unreliable partner or a partner we can't afford to lose? And let me dig into this a bit more to give you a little more. Canada has committed to increase defense spending, and we did hear about defense as well. Stronger border measures, but we're not taking part in Trump's newly created Board of Peace or the International Security Force in Gaza. How would you define the balance between sovereignty, security, and alliance management at the moment? So people can jump in on this one. And
I
I'll keep
really
an eye
need
out.
someone to
Yeah,
ask Rob
to say that
Ashton
Trump is an unreliable
to
partner is
answer
to state the
his real
crushingly
good
obvious.
position on Gaza.
We fought the
Because
free trade deals in the NDP and the labor movement.
the
and
fact
social
that he
movements on
skipped
the left in the 80s and
the
90s because we
CJPME
knew it
debate
was
is a problem.
bonkers to tie and bind our economy so tightly to such a dominant 10 times larger economy to the south. And so now we're living the vulnerability of those decisions, and we are at Trump's mercy. I can't believe you said Board of Peace with a straight face. These are ravings. They're not foreign policy. We have to be smart and take them on and take them seriously, but we can't participate in fantasies like the so-called Golden Dome and other Trumpian dystopias. We actually have to stand up for Canada, and that means negotiating firmly.
And not only negotiating firmly, but when the emperor is insane and has no clothing, somebody has to say it.
Yes.
And when they do, others will listen, and people start to have just because he's the president of the United States and can push a button that I've been living under the threat of all my life, the nuclear holocaust, doesn't mean you have to kowtow to him. And there are many, many people in the United States who aren't. But the things we need to be thinking about as Canadians is we need an embargo on military shipments to the U.S. now.
Yes.
Not only is it
Yes.
bad when the country
Don't send things to the
citizens
fascists.
with their military, but they're talking about 51st state. J.S. Woodsworth knew you shouldn't send scrap steel to Nazi Germany. We should not. We need a U.S. arms embargo now.
Ms. Ferguson.
Well, which is why I wrote to the Prime Minister and demanded that we stop sending weapons that are being used by ICE against American citizens. But we need to do more than that. You know, we need to continue to push this government to live up to its obligations, to stop sending weapons, to
Come on. We're going to fix this, guys. I'm sorry.
regimes that are going to use them against human rights abusers. And that continues to happen despite the fact that that is against international and Canadian law. But, you know, you talked, Hannah, about developing trade relationships. And I think that is something that we also need to look at. You know, we are a trading nation. We do need to have trade relationships. We need to trade interprovincially better, and we need to develop trading relationships aside from the United States.
Would you say Mr. Carney is doing a better job at that?
I think we need to do much more. And I think we need to do less with the United States, because let's be honest, CUSMA was something that Donald Trump signed. We have a trade relationship with this president. And
notice how Heather
any trade
McPherson
relationship he makes
took
forward,
Tony McQuail's point,
likely to break.
turned it, and made it way less extreme, way less
and I've been fighting bullies
visionary, way less intensive, while trying to at the same time make it sound like she wanted to go further.
Strength to push back.
That's my concern with Heather
Our current
McPherson.
prime minister, he talks a tough game, but then he folds. Polyev, well, we've all heard that guy cheering on some of Trump's decisions. So we have to stand up for Canadian jobs in our industries. We have to invest in Canadian industries, but when we invest in Canadian industries, we have to invest in job creation with that. We also have to diversify our trade agreements. We have to diversify with countries that want to work with us, that want to be allies with us. And the board of peace, that's not a board of peace. And I'm actually glad that Trump took our country off that board, because it would have been a black eye on our country.
Danilo, you want to
But
jump in?
where
so
do you
asked if
stand
Carney was
on
doing a better
Gaza?
job, and I was listening to actually a CBC radio cast, and it was counting down kind of the different interprovincial trade barriers that are being broken down, and I was waiting for agriculture. I was waiting for food. I was waiting for Carney to finally enable Canada to feed itself and to support our farming and our agricultural industry in a good way, and it just wasn't there. And when we're sitting on such a beautiful country where we could easily feed ourselves and not have a major hunger problem, we have a prime minister that is not putting that first. He's leaving people in poverty across the country, and it's mind blowing. And the shout out to like the Council of Canadians warned us about the free trade agreement.
Yep.
We had a solid heads up that this was not a great idea, and we embedded ourselves in those relationships with the United States. And it's going to take a very firm turn and investment to get us out of it.
So this, here's the
Oh,
thing,
sorry,
though. We're talking
here and
about
then we'll come back.
Trump-proofing the economy. We're talking about a Canadian shield, an economic Canadian shield that will actually protect us from these tariff attacks. There's a lot of talk about how we're all the same, we all believe in the same policies. It's not entirely true. Our campaign has put forward the essential role of public ownership to make, to double down on the things that make Canada Canada, not just our healthcare system, investing in
this is what I'm talking about.
Where more than 3 million people, mostly women, work in long-term care, in childcare, and healthcare and education.
Both from a policy perspective and from a
internet
debate
connection,
perspective.
a public bank through Canada Post and postal banking. These are measures emphasizing the responsibility of the government to step up and govern and use our public resources in the public interest. Not everybody on the stage is willing to go there, but that's the only way that Canada can build a Trump-proof economy.
100%. Call them out.
Sure, they're compatible. They're compatible.
And a public grocery option isn't a quick fix. What we have to do, we have to push our federal government. And when we take power eventually, we actually have to start doing what's immediate. And that's price caps on groceries.
Sure.
That's price caps on telecoms. Stronger penalties and even jail time for companies that try to gouge our prices, try to gouge Canadian
Yeah, sure,
citizens.
but that
This is
doesn't
immediate,
discount the
because
fact
right
that
now,
these
when I was a
should be
kid,
public
it was
goods.
$20 for a bag of groceries. Nowadays, it's 50.
You're still
60
talking
bucks.
about it from a capitalist
Mr. McCoy, you want to
perspective.
jump in as well?
I think we need to think about an even more radical approach to say, what is trade for, and do we need it to have a healthy economy? Trade benefits those in the middle, but too often trade is based on cheap labor here and cheap and expensive products there. So we certainly need state-to-state trade, but we also need to say, what do we need as a society? How can we produce it ourselves? How can we relocalize it? And how can we make that work for Canadians? And you're right, that's not a cheap or quick fix, but in 1988, I took a float in 8 fall fairs in our area that said, Free Canada, trade Mulrooney. You know, we've had a lot of time to get into the trouble we're in. It'll take us some time to get out. But if we don't know where we want to go, we are never going to get there. So saying, we got to trade, we got to, no. Well, yes, agriculture is very dependent on trade, but can we restructure how we do agriculture in Canada so we meet our own needs and get paid fairly for that and don't destroy the environment trying to trade ourselves to prosperity?
Well, and I do think one of the things that we have to come back to is that the way we protect our sovereignty is by protecting our economy and making sure that it is working for all Canadians. And that does involve making sure that we are investing in building things here. You know, we used to have Connaught Labs here. We used to be able to build our own pharmaceuticals in this country. We couldn't do that during COVID-19. You know, we have a housing crisis, a national housing crisis. We should be investing in the homes that people need to live in right now. We should be investing in our healthcare system, investing in those things.
A really big economic, like immediate impact, close the infrastructure gap for nations across this country. If you invest in closing that gap, we're talking about over $600 billion that's going to go into our economy. These aren't tiny numbers. And this is also supporting people to live in a great way to make over 7 million jobs in a 2-year time period. Like this is just an unreal opportunity. And Carney turns and he invests in freaking pipelines and mines and these things that are not going to bring money to our economy now.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's so
we
true. There
finished
could
that
be a way of
segment
real
already. That was fast. I
interjecting
did not have to bring in a
actual
lot of prompts on that. So moving
phenomenal
on
amounts
to
of support for
topic
people
2
and
as well.
providing
This is on
jobs.
energy and the environment, something I'm sure we all
We
would
elected
love
a
to discuss,
banker.
especially now. Provincial NDP governments and the federal NDP openly clash over major projects, including oil and gas and pipelines. Does the federal NDP need a clearer, unified position on resource development, and what would that be? So we are going to start with the 45-second round, and Ms. McPherson, you're first.
Thank you very much. And listen, let's be very clear. There is a climate crisis right now. As a member of parliament, I've taken some big climate action in our parliament. You know,
We are
I took on
beyond
the CEO of
the
Imperial
point
Oil.
where it can
I
be
brought
really
forward legislation that
controlled.
would stop coal mining in the Rocky Mountains. You know, I worked with Indigenous people in Northern Alberta to stop the release of tailings into the Athabasca Delta. And I have a plan going forward to deal with the climate crisis that we are facing that involves stopping oil and gas subsidies, you know, investing in renewables, you know, making
not
sure
shutting down
that
the
we
tar
are building a
sands.
plan that brings workers along, that workers are at the center. Because if workers aren't part of every single environmental plan in this country, then
You
that
can
plan is
bring the
doomed.
workers along and
Okay,
also
thank you,
shut
Ms.
down the
McPherson.
tar
Mr. Ashton,
sands.
you're next.
So I come from a province that burns 4 months out of the year, and then the next month it floods horribly. And that's true across this country, and these burn seasons get longer and longer as we go. You see, climate is a class war because big polluters profit and their friends run away with a pocket full of money. When it's the working class at the end of the day that pays.
I like that Rob Ashton talks about a class war.
Climate action has
It
to do
already
three
existing.
things to fix this. We have to cut pollution.
I like that about it.
Lower the cost for families and create good union jobs. But to win this war, you'll need to be united and not divided, because division is the weapon of the boss.
Thank you, Mr. Ashton. Mr. McQuail, you're next.
If you
He
visit
talks
our
like a
website,
union
Tony
leader,
McQuail, greenprogressive.ca,
right? Like it's
there's a piece on it talks about a holistic goal for Canada. And it is something that I hope could help provincial and federal NDP work together with our riding associations and the people of Canada to say this is a vision that is hopeful in terms of both the environment and the economy and the kind of world we want to build. What we have to understand when we talk about the environment is every time we take a breath, a drink, or a bite, the environment isn't something out there. It's now something inside us and becomes part of us. So we have to have plans and decisions that build a healthy environment as part of building a reasonable economy.
Tenille Johnston.
Yeah, where I come from, people work in resource-based industries. They work in forestry, fishing, energy, and like Rob offered, wildfires come in, we're suffering from floods and droughts, and they're already reshaping what our communities look like and how we move about day to day. People there don't deny climate change in whatsoever, but where we struggle is where we see the clear path to the next job when we talk about job transitions. A serious climate plan has to remove the $30 billion that we give fossil fuel industries year over year over year. That money needs to go back into renewables, retrofits, transit, care work, the land restoration, so we can rewild areas where we've had a detrimental impact to our environment.
And Heather McPherson. No.
Sorry. Again, I can do it again.
No,
I'm happy to go again.
I just
I've
turned
got
and
a
I
lot
looked
to
at
say.
you. Abby Lewis, my apologies.
I love this party. To be in a national leadership debate and have unanimity on the stage that the climate emergency is a frontal issue. We talk about it second in the debate, not left to the end. But there are differences among us. I believe it's time for the NDP to tell the truth. We have to get off fossil
I
fuels.
like that
as
he's
quickly
talking
as
about the
possible.
differences
And we're
between
the only
them.
party Canadians can
I
trust
need him to be
do it
calling out
without
by
throwing a single
name
worker
the
under the bus.
differences.
Workers can't transition into a promise.
Like
You
the
can't feed your
people
family
who are
on a slogan.
against him on these
That's why we
things.
need a Canadian Green New Deal to create 1 million good union climate jobs on an emergency basis under public ownership. Fossil fuel workers need those jobs waiting for them. Carney's ripped up decades of climate policy. It's our time to lead on climate.
Yeah,
I'm going to get to that in just a
100%.
bit on the climate policy. I want to start with you. That's why I was coming to you last time, because I'm starting with you this time. You're from Alberta. That's where your riding is. Alberta is central to this debate. How does the NDP compete in the West without alienating voters whose livelihoods depend on energy.
Yeah. Listen, I am the daughter of a truck driver. My family worked in the oil and gas sector. I'm proud of the contribution that Alberta made to building Canada. But I
Yeah.
also want us to be building a future-facing economy. You know, I want us to be building a future where my children want to stay and work in Alberta. And that means
This is such
investing in
a
renewables. But I want to be
backwards
clear because you
question
brought this up
because there are
earlier.
so many ways
we need to
to
work with the provincial
create
governments,
jobs
the
for
provincial
workers
NDP
in a
across this country.
green
You know, we
energy
need to work with them
transition
because what they are
that
achieving
could
for the people
immediately
in their
just
provinces is
continue to have
important.
them working.
You know, I think about what Rachel Notley achieved and how she was able to cut child poverty in half. I think about the role she played in getting us off coal power, you know, reducing our emissions, and how important that was. We cannot be picking fights with the provincial
It's
NDP.
good,
So we
but
have to work
we
together.
Let me just
need.
ask you
That's
this.
key.
You have Naheed
She
Menshi
had
in
a
the room
super
together
majority
with
in the
the Premier of
legislature. She could
BC.
have done
How do you
anything.
negotiate those two premiers?
Well, I can tell you it doesn't help. An MOU by Mark Carney and Danielle Smith that pits British Columbians against Albertans, that pits
Yeah, well,
people
that's
against each other
true.
during a national sovereignty crisis. You know, what we need to do is work on those things that as New Democrats that we believe in, those values that will move us forward. And not be a burden to the provincial parties, because the provincial parties are making life better for the people in their provinces.
So let me come to you, Mr. Lewis, because you oppose fossil fuel expansion.
Yes.
Is that position electorally viable in energy producing provinces, or does it limit the energy?
Yes.
Albertans have known for decades that we need to diversify our economy in
Yes.
fossil fuel producing regions. Everybody knows it. And the fossil fuel industry keeps stoking division and presenting us with new pipeline projects as an existential necessity to kick the can down the road and delay that time. 92% of Albertans believe that the industry should pay, as is the law, polluter pays, to clean up the mess in one of our most beautiful
Avi Lewis is
places
doing
in
a
all
really
Canada, in
good
Alberta.
job of
There are
just
hundreds of
calling out
thousands of
so
oil
much of
wells
this
that have reached
bullshit
the end of their life.
framing that
They're
gets put
leaking on
this
in
issue
farmers' fields and local municipalities
in a
that do not
really
have the
just
money.
really
They download
authentic
these
way
wells,
that
abandoned and orphaned
isn't
wells,
doing
to
it
companies that go
obnoxiously.
bankrupt, and they get rid of any responsibility for cleaning them up. That's decades of unionized labor for the very workers who dug those wells to clean up rather than further contaminate the land.
Mr. McQuail, you want to jump in?
We also need to ask, is climate change a problem or a symptom of a bigger problem? And I would say it is a symptom of a bigger problem, which is a society that has gotten addicted to using way too much energy. We are dumping millions of years of fossilized sunlight into our atmosphere instead of maintaining the carbon cycle that we're all a part of. And so we have to talk about how do we not only change the economy and transition.
I like how Tony will just throw in a random different thing
reduce the amount of energy
that is
and resources
interesting.
that economies use, because our economic growth, which has been promoted for the 45 years since I got involved in politics,
and relevant,
is actually becoming a cancer on
but
the
just
planet. So
stops the flow of conversation
renewable energy is a
with the
huge
rest of them.
opportunity, not just in terms of jobs.
It's a real skill and a
but in
debate to
terms of
have.
costs and the cost to people. We put up a passive solar house in the 1970s, put up an on-grid or a grid-connected wind generator. We've got solar panels. These all help reduce your costs if you do these well and effectively. So that's what we need to be doing as Canadians, saying, what can we build to build the transition and get their jobs? But right now, it is far more effective to switch to renewable energy in terms of jobs per amount of energy produced, and also in terms of the economic value being spread across the country, not just on narrow pipelines or individual wells.
Tanil, let me ask you this. If Indigenous nations choose ownership in oil and gas projects, is it the role of the federal NDP to tell them no?
No, I think it's the role of the federal NDP to work with nations to bring forward a prosperous Canada for all, which is actually the title of the Assembly of First Nations strategic plan, is Prosperity for All. We really, truly, I'm going to speak for a lot of Indigenous people across the country, we care about our country. We want prosperity for all. We truly believe those words when we say them. And we're talking about transition. One of the biggest pieces of misinformation out there, I believe, is the fact that people think that getting jobs in renewable industries don't pay. that you're not going to be able to make the same amount of money working as an engineer building a
That's
turbine as you
interesting.
are if you're working as an engineer in an oil field. And that's just not true. These jobs are good paying jobs. They're jobs that are better for
My
your
problem is with the
body,
word
mind, your
transition
spirit.
because,
You can have a
like,
good, amazing
climate
paying
change,
job
like,
in a renewable energy
people
industry.
die
It doesn't
every
have
year
to be this
from
misinformation of, well, I'm not going to
climate
make as much, or they're
change.
not going to be as
Like,
many
we are
jobs.
past
That's
the
just not
point
true. So we need to get the
that not
education out there that
happening.
demonstrates what type of workforce we're going
And
to
we
need to bring
need
forward
to
this
not be thinking about it as a
industry that we
transition.
want
We need
across
to be
Canada.
thinking
And we
about it
also need
as
to
an
set up the education
immediate
system
change.
to bear that. And it needs to be free. We
And
have
it needs
to
to
have
be a
free
sudden,
education to train our new
drastic
workforce.
change.
Mr. Ashton, let me bring you in on this
And
debate.
that's
You
going to
talk
be
about
hard for a
protecting
lot of
workers, and I
people,
want to talk about
but
the
that's the
Indigenous
way we're
part
going
of
to
it
save
too.
our planet.
When energy jobs are tied to Indigenous-owned projects, does that does opposing development risk putting New Democrats at odds with both labor and reconciliation?
So look, to win this war, to this climate war, we need workers, Indigenous, non-Indigenous workers. But we have people on the stage right now that are going to stand against plans like the BC Transmission Power Line or plans to build like the Port of Churchill. We're sending more workers to the Conservative Party like that. And so when we say we need to shut down industries, those jobs already being there, we just send more workers to the Conservative. Climate action needs to be centered on workers and Indigenous people, and that includes Indigenous projects. We have to have an open mind here. We have to be able to bring new projects along, to bring workers along with that, to bring Indigenous communities along with that, and bring the rest of the communities across this country along with that as well.
Well, I think that was referencing Mr. Lewis.
You're calling out the side shot there?
Have
Rob,
you-
that was very restrained for you. I appreciate that.
We're in the
I've-
debate portion, so
Listen,
go ahead.
Yeah,
we're
like,
a big
call
country,
each other
we're
out,
an affiliated
guys.
party, and we're allowed to have differences with our provincial sections. I've had warm conversations with my premier David Eby's office, with my friend Wab Kanu, with Nahid Nenshi, and we are allowed to have differences on specific issues because we support each other as New Democrats. When I spoke to Nahid Nenshi, I told him that I love the way that he stood up against Daniel Smith's disgusting use of the notwithstanding clause, attacks on teachers, attacks on trans kids. Nahid Nenshi needs to be the next premier of Alberta. And we have some profound differences around fossil fuels. And he was asked
how do you work that out?
because he listen, Nahid answered it himself. He was scrummed by reporters in Ottawa, and they were like, "What about this Lewis thing?" And he was like, "This is the UCP when they're desperate and lashing out. These are the ways they try to turn us against each other. I'm not buying it." He said, "Who cares?" I think Albertans are smarter than that. So I'm going with Nahid right now. We shouldn't be doing our opponents' work for each other. We can stand together as New Democrats and have democratic disagreements around crucial issues of public policy.
I know we're out of time.
Yeah, as long as
Second.
people that are going to stand in the way of saving the
I
planet
agree
and
with
saving
what
the
Tony said
country
in terms of this is an opportunity for us. This is a huge opportunity. But
aren't
we
going to be
cannot
standing in the
picking fights
way.
with our provincial parties, and I have seen that happen in the past. You know, we have people who have picked those fights. This is an opportunity. This is where we can go, and if we put workers at the center, and
I'm
if
sorry,
we have a
but
plan,
like
then we actually can build a
when the
forward-facing
provincial
economy
party is
that
standing
gets
in the
people
way
working,
of
that builds
saving
our
the
country,
planet,
that
yeah,
builds a
we're going to battle
forward-facing
them.
future for all of us.
Okay.
When
we
they're
did go a
doing the
little bit
right
over.
things,
That's
we'll
my
support
fault.
them.
We are moving to the next
But
section. This is
yeah,
going to focus
we
on
100%.
rebuilding
I
the
don't
party. Our
care
next question
whether you're a
comes from the
conservative,
NDP in
liberal, New
Quebec.
Democrat, Green, or
After the
Bloc,
video
or
is
whatever
done,
else.
each of you will have
If
1
you
minute
stand
to
in the
answer. So we're
way
giving you
of a
15 extra
progressive
seconds.
leftist
To answer
future,
that question, it
you
has to be
need to
answered
be
in
called
French.
out
If you
when
don't
you
answer in
stand in
French,
the
we're
way
going to
of
cut
that.
you off. However, in the
That's a
debate
reality
portion,
of
you can
the
choose
way
to
the
answer in
politics
either French or
works.
English. So let's play the video.
Bonjour, mon nom est Malcolm Lewis.
Hello, my name is Malcolm Louis Richemont. I'm been part of the NDP for a decade now. And last year, I was a candidate for NDG Westmount in Montreal. I'm also a member of the board of administration for the NPD Quebec section. And I always remembered that in 2011, when the NPD won the most number of seats in its history in Quebec. But since then, we've almost been erased from the map in Quebec. So my question for you is, what are the ideas to reverse our decline in Quebec?
In Quebec, first. 1 minute.
Tiens, on a échoué à
So we didn't succeed to connect to the daily life in Quebec, and that's something we have to start from scratch. Our road to NDP victory goes through Quebec. It's so well known that's become a cliche, and we have to have the strategies to implement that road to success, and we have to rebuild our relationship with the union movement in Quebec, which is the strongest unionized province in Canada, and we have to target the progressive majority in Quebec, which is the strongest majority in Quebec, which means emphasizing public services, climate action, and also want to promote a certain level of political economy.
French speakers need to tell me whether these people are doing good in French or not. Because in the translation, it sounds like Aubie Lewis is saying what I would want him to say in this answer.
C'est pas une cliché.
It is true, and it's not a cliche. The reconstruction of our party passes through Quebec. All of Canada must practice all candidates must practice their French, and that's a priority for me. To build something pan-Canadian, we have to recognize the importance of culture, of language, of Quebec history. Quebec is united, but we must rebuild in the same way as everywhere else in Canada. The party's reconstruction has to go through naming our candidates earlier, being ready, and we must also increase membership. Quebecers have a place at our table, and each member has a voice in the party. I know how to do the work. I do the work. I am ready. For me, it means rebuilding the confidence with workers.
That was a painful answer from Heather McPherson.
Win over what we lost. We must show people that the NDP has the solution, and we need Quebec to win. I am our organizers must create relationships with unions, and we must talk to people. It is important.
My concern about Rob Ashton at this point, I think, is he a one-trick pony?
And backs away from
nothing. Is he trying, is for him fundamentally every single issue going to come back to labor? Because that's important, but you need to be able to talk about other issues.
We must support.
You need to have stances on other issues.
Individual ridings.
Au Quebec and Canada.
We need a green progressive front that to win over the confidence of
this is one of the things I like
we
most
to
about
collaborate
Tony
with other parties and
cooperation platform. It's like leftists and progressives working together is the only way that
coalitions must present a program, a responsible program, or
a truly leftist takeover of Canadian social
movements and associations.
That's the way it's going to
work together to select a candidate who will represent the Green Coalition's program in the elections.
Yes.
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for the question. I respect the French language and Quebec. I respect the
charmant dans notre parti. On doit faire.
As a party, we must make our party grow. We must fund associations, and we have to assemble workers around us. We need
On a besoin de nous nations autochtones.
We need a new
this is so
indigenous
clearly
nation,
between the
we
translation,
are there
you can hear
for
how
everyone,
read from a
but
script
we
this is.
must win.
The open debate portion of this. This is 5 minutes. You can answer in either English or French. I am going to ask in English. My
Because
French
none
is
of
not
you
very
can
good.
speak French properly.
Let's start with this question. Why should Quebec voters trust a leader who cannot communicate with them in their first language? And Mr. Lewis, you're first.
On ne peut pas avoir confiance dans un chef qui ne peut pas.
So we can't have confidence in a leader who cannot communicate in the Quebecers' language. Everywhere throughout Canada, there are
Avi
francophone
Lewis is definitely, I
communities,
think
and we
it's safe to
cannot
say, doing
forget
the
them.
best with
So,
just
but it's not
presenting
only
as
a
though he
question
can
of
do this,
talking, speaking
which I
French.
think
We
is
have to know
important
the
at
unique
this stage
history
of
of
the
Quebec.
game.
We have to know the culture.
Québécois.
There is, in a sense, a Quebec nation and of Quebecers, and these Quebecers deserve an NDP leader who knows their culture. It's not only a question of language.
Je laisse.
Would you
So,
becoming fully bilingual, and by
Bien
what
sûr,
time and
bien
what
sûr.
time frame?
Oui, c'est en marche. Oui, oui, oui.
Time frame?
I think we're all pretty committed to become.
yes, indeed.
By what time frame?
in
Sorry,
being
Mr.
honest-
McQuail, just 1 second. By what time frame, please?
I think being fully bilingual is going to take at least a year of solid commitment to the language. And in my opinion, as someone who's spent my adult life trying to retain any ounce of my native Likwala language, where we only have like 6 fluent speakers left, I totally understand and wholeheartedly like live holding on to your language as a vital component of your culture. And I think understanding that and reaching out to Quebec and offering that relational history of retaining language is huge. I think what Quebec has been able to do with holding on to their Francophone community and their language is absolutely amazing. And it's something that we've struggled to do in Canada with numerous nations across this country where our language dialects have been decimated by colonialism and Western culture. So I think we have a lot to learn from Quebec and how we retain languages and move forward with more language culture in Canada. I mean, in BC,
They're
we
just
only have
letting her
one
take up as much
Francophone
time
school district for the
as
entire province.
possible.
We need to fix that.
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. McQuail. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I want to be perfectly honest. As somebody who has 2 years of high school French and is going to turn 74 in March, I doubt that I will become negotiatingly fluent en français in my lifetime. That is what translators are for. And if I deal with a native community, I will need a translator to speak with someone who doesn't speak English. But when we had Katimavik billets, I got on really well with the Francophone billets who were working class as opposed to the Anglophones who came from Rosemont.
I think that's a
and
fair
Columbus.
position to have
And
at
so
Tony's
what
age,
we
given
need
the
to
fact that
understand is I do
he's not
speak
going to win this
better
leadership
with Mother
race.
Nature than a good many people. And I don't think we're in a crisis.
I think
where
that that's
the
a totally
Francophone
fair
language or
position for him to be taking.
Francophones in Quebec are going to disappear.
He's doing his
But our
best,
planet is disappearing before our eyes, and we need
but
somebody
he's
who
going to put his effort
understands
where it
enough
needs
of
to
that
be.
language.
Il y a 2 langues officielles au Canada. C'est pas une question de négociation.
There are 2 official languages in Canada. It's not a question of interpretation or translation. There's 2 languages.
We're going to come to you next. You've highlighted your experience. You've been a member of parliament since 2019. You understand federal politics. Given that Quebec is an essential
Yeah, but
part of
obviously,
forming government, why
Tony's
wasn't
not
becoming
going to
bilingual
be
a
the leader,
priority?
right?
Pour
So,
moi,
like, I get what you're
c'est une
trying
grande
to do, but come on.
Oh, for me, it is a huge priority for my family. For example, my daughter speaks French very well. It's important for me that
Pour l'école. C'est
that
difficile à l'Alberta.
so it's hard. It's because it is necessary. We protect the French language in Quebec, but also in other writings, other provinces in the country. For example, Edmonton,
Yeah, there's French
Strathcona,
speakers all over the
And
place.
we have
That's
fought
true,
hard. I have
but
fought
come
hard for
on.
Campus Saint-Jean. I have fought hard to make sure that we are respecting and protecting French language in Alberta and across the country.
Thank you. And Mr. Ashton, let
Okay.
me ask you, you lead a national union representing workers across the country for more than a decade. In that role, how did you engage with Francophone workers, and why did learning French not become a part of the national leadership responsibility?
So we don't have members in Quebec. We're a BC-based union. But to answer your original question about what it means and to learn French. And I learned this lesson when I was in Gatineau, having an event where it's what does the French language mean to Quebecers? And it goes back to the Quiet Revolution. When Quebecers took back their power from the
Wait,
church.
is Rob Ashton
It's
saying
when
that
I
he
learned
just
that,
now in this
that
campaign
the English language was the language of the ruling class and the French language was the language of the
learned
working
about
class.
this?
So I'm committed wholeheartedly to learning French.
Okay, and we are out of time for this segment, so we are going to move on to
Okay.
the next one, so I appreciate your answers on that.
Cool.
The NDP, this one is the future and role of the party. The NDP currently governs in British Columbia and Manitoba, and we've had a little bit of this discussion throughout, but we're going to get in a bit more. It's governed in Alberta, Nova Scotia, Ontario, Saskatchewan, Yukon. Why can New Democrats win provincially, but they can't seem to win federally? Mr. Ashton, you first.
Canadians are better off when the NDP is strong. I think we all know that because when we're weak, it's the working class that pays the price. So we have to change this. We have to build on the provincial successes.
We weren't super great as a country during Harper's majority government,
so that means
but
real
sure.
power for our members, real power for our EDAs. Discussions on shop floors and not in boardrooms. Show working people that we hear them, that we get them. We're going to fight like hell for them. That's how we're going to win downtown. That's how we're going to win in the suburbs. And that's definitely how we're going to win in rural ridings. Thank you.
So is that the fact that the ideas haven't been brought forward to the federal part of the party? I'm trying to understand.
Because communication, right? We have to be able to talk to people. We have to be able to talk to people across the country. We have to be able to understand and listen to them. And a lot of our provincial sectors have actually been able to understand and actually listen to what Canadians want in their provinces.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. McQuail.
Well, the first past the post electoral system
Yes.
is a great handicap, not only to the national party, but to the provincial parties. My biggest regret is that in 1990, the Ontario NDP did not work to bring in proportional representation, because we've now had 3 phony majority governments under Doug Ford. Yes, our provincial parties have had some success, but they have also often worked a long time in the wilderness because of first past the post, which ensures that working people do not get representation in Parliament or in their legislatures in proportion to how we would vote. And then we start voting strategically, and it's been a big impact nationally.
Okay, Neil Johnston.
Yeah, I think we can win. I think we absolutely can win federally, but we have to be going to places that maybe we haven't been before. We have to be reconnecting with ridings that we've left behind for decades. And there's ridings out there that we have not been present in that are ready for change and want to mobilize and want to have that big win for us federally.
But you have to listen to those ridings. You can't just come to those ridings and say, this is how we campaign. This is what we talk about. This is what we're going to do. You have to listen to the people in those ridings. And that's a big issue with the NDP.
We don't want a softer version of the status quo. We want that big, bold change that can really secure equity across the country for Canadians.
Mr. Lewis?
Carrying right on from what Tennille is saying, our campaign has shown that despite our devastating loss in the last election, the NDP is not just reviving, we are already soaring back to life through the very thing that makes us special, our members. In just a few months, our campaign has built momentum in fundraising and memberships and crowds that everybody can see. And we've done it by sharing a bold, ambitious vision that can never be confused with that of the Liberal Party. That's key. And we've used a distributed organizing model that trusts our members. That's how we're going to win back party status and more in the next election.
Trust in the members
and are free to choose the techniques
and the people
and the
in the
messages that work in
communities
their
is so
communities.
key.
The central party doesn't try to control them, but supports them and resources them.
Yes.
They're already coming back.
Yes.
Heather McPherson.
Lack of
Listen,
central
New
party
Democrats are New
control is
Democrats.
so
Whether we are
important.
provincial or federal New Democrats, we are
As
the
somebody
same.
who
We
was a
share the
riding
same
association
values. So we
president,
need to
I
be
can tell
working
you
together
that
to achieve
my
those
stomach
things for Canadians.
dropped
I have seen
when I
what
got a
happens
call and
across
saw
this
that it was
country
my
when New
central
Democrats are
party
elected.
organizer.
No, it is important because it makes life for the people that live in those provinces better. And so we need to get more New Democrats elected. That's how we do this. And we do that by organizing year round. You know, we had a model in Edmonton, Strathcona. When I was elected in 2019, we chose to expand, to do year round organizing, to get candidates selected early, to work with other riding associations, to give the power back to members. That's what we need to do to rebuild our party. That's the work that I have been
Heather,
doing.
you
That's the work
inherited
I'll
a safe
continue to do as the
NDP.
leader.
We are now going to move into
Like,
the
that's
debate
good.
portion.
You won. Great. You're
Some
an
working
MP.
class voters, and
You
I'm going to start with you,
inherited
Mr.
a safe
Ashton,
NDP.
left the NDP because they felt the party didn't understand the economic anxiety at the time. What would you change? Just
Linda
one thing
Duncan
would you
did the real
change to
work
win
in
them back?
Edmonton
And we'll start with you, Mr.
for
Ashton.
that Edmonton Strathcona.
Talking about what matters to Canadians: jobs, affordability, housing. And that's what we're doing on my campaign, is that's what we're talking to people about. Because when you've got a guy like Polyev that is strutting around and pretending to be a worker, well, he's about as much as a worker as I am a flower girl.
He did lure over
Yeah,
a lot of the workers in the last election
Polyev's
campaign.
pretty slick as snot, right? But what we're finding through our campaign, there's a young fella in Brantford. He came up to me and said he voted Conservative in the last election, but he signed up to our party so he could follow and vote for our campaign. And that's what's happening at every city that we go to, because they understand the messaging, that we're listening, that we're going to fight for them. We're going to bring people back to our party where they belong.
Okay.
We're not going to scare them away.
I think that's one thing to, have the big, bold ideas and say all the big things and create all the excitement around it, but you have to show up. This is a big thing that I felt we weren't doing enough of. We weren't showing up.
What does that mean exactly?
Physically go to these places, shake the hands, say hi, sit down, close the mouth, and listen with both ears so that you're absorbing what just happened in the last election, especially. We had a tough go. And I can tell you for sure, Polyev was in my riding way too much to make me comfortable. He kept having meetings in my community, and that was 3 years before the last election. We visited ridings that haven't seen a leader or a leadership candidate in over 2 decades.
So you're blaming the former leader for not showing up?
I'm not blaming the former leader from showing up, because our party is made by the movement of the people. We are bigger than one person, and we have to show up for each other. Not going to the places and spaces where we have big opportunities is not helping us.
No, blame the former
huge
leader.
opportunity
He
in
did a
Prince
bad
Albert. A lot of
job.
people might not see that. Prince Albert has a very high Indigenous population, and people tell me all the time, well, Indigenous people don't vote. I'm like, well, have you gone and had a conversation with them? Have you met with their leadership and talked about where they're at and what they need and what their priorities are and where they want partnership from the federal government? No, we haven't. So we have to go and build these relationships in community, not on Zoom, and bring those folks into our party in a really good way. That is a huge untapped potential that we could be bringing into the fold as a party, and we're not doing it. So there's huge opportunity.
Mr. McQuell.
And we have to rebuild the party from the ground up so that we strengthen the foundation of the party across the country. I mean, I got involved in 1980 because I wanted Ed Broadbent to be our prime minister, and I wanted the NDP to be the government. And you ask, what's our role? Our role is not to sit on the sidelines and try and guilt or shame the liberals and conservatives into doing what's right. We need to get into positions where people can actually see us govern. And when they have, I mean, we have healthcare because Tommy Douglas showed what could be done. And then the liberals and conservatives got scared that, well, the CCF might form a federal government. Let's bring in healthcare. And now we're losing it to Danielle Smith and Doug Ford strangling it or starving it. So we need to be in government. That's the role I want to see for the NDP. But to do that, we have to rebuild the foundation of our riding associations, make sure the communication is two-way and not just about asking about money. How about information on how we could strengthen our riding associations, what's working with other riding associations, what our MPs and MPPs are doing, and what other countries are doing to solve the problems that are on people's minds, be it access to healthcare, food pricing, or jobs, so that we actually can show people what could be done and how
I
they can
agree
do
with
it,
this. I
and we
also
have
think
the
the
strength
riding
to do it,
associations can
so they might
become like
vote for us.
Thank you,
organizing
Mr. McQuail.
tools
Mr.
for
Lewis, I want to come to
community
you
action
because you
beyond
argue
just
for
political
being
action.
bold, not liberal light. Those are your words. That appeals to activists, but elections are math.
Yeah.
And we have
Well,
to
that
be
appeals
frank.
to Canadians, Hannah.
If you refuse to court centrist liberals, where does your growth come from?
That's not the way it is at all, actually. But thanks for the opportunity to clarify.
You're welcome.
This is where you see the shared values. We got to show up. We got to talk to working class Canadians. Daniil, Rob, Tony, Heather knows the same thing. We need to win. How do we do it? This is what we need to focus the conversation. We launched this campaign laser focused on the everyday emergency of just trying to get by in an impossible, unfair, and rigged economy. We're the only party that has a story for Canadians about why life is unaffordable, why you're crying at the supermarket checkout, because Galen Weston is worth $18 billion, and because 5 grocery chains dominate the industry and price gouge and collude.
Avi
That's
Lewis
why we
is
put out public
messaging
options
this
for
so
groceries.
brilliant.
And we got incredible response, Hannah and Rob, know that you must know this, from Conservatives. Conservatives are really interested in a public option for groceries because Conservatives understand that the economy is rigged and we live in a monopoly economy. We share values, but we have different solutions, and we're going to win by offering solutions that are actually as big as the crises we face that will solve the crisis of working class life.
On the back of all the affordability is also we should have free memberships. So we shouldn't be charging $10 for people to come join our party when we know that they're being crushed by the capitalist economy that the Conservatives and Liberals love. We need to change our approach to bringing people into the NDP family.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. McPherson, you wanted to get in there too.
I did want to say we got to come back to rebuilding our party, and to rebuild our party. You're right. We do need to show up. It's why I have door knocked from Smithers to St. John's. It is why I have been doing this work for years. It is how we expanded the number of people that we could get elected in Alberta. And we've got to continue to do that work. And that is working with the riding associations. That is training our members. It is supporting our members. It is making sure that vetting process is transparent and fast. It is making sure that we're
about making sure that you're listening to your members
to do the work that we are asking them to do. And ultimately, we've got to go to our members and we have to trust them. We have to trust them to help us rebuild the party.
But you have to also listen to them.
Okay,
right? Heather McPherson is really talking about pushing central party messaging on.
We talk about rebuilding the party,
and that's a problem.
I'm glad to hear that my friend has a good relationship with the premiers and premiers and waitings of the provinces. I'm glad to see that he knows that he's got to talk to the provinces and have a good relationship with them, and that he's grown. Because about a decade and a half ago, something was dropped from the federal NDP that absolutely destroyed the Alberta NDP's chance ever again for being reelected up until the head took over.
That's pretty heavy.
And so I'm really happy to see that he's grown and he's become a stronger New Democrat.
I hear a little bit of tension there, so I'm going to come to you, Mr. McQuail. I'm going to let Mr. Lewis respond to that.
Once again, thank you so much for the opportunity to clarify. First of all, the LEAP was 10 years ago, not 15 years ago. The LEAP manifesto was itself an exercise in building a big coalition, building a bigger table, as Heather might say, among people who didn't share all of the same views, from environmentalists to the union that represents oil sands workers. A senior official from Unifor was in the document making changes until the last minute. So we built a big coalition. We launched the LEAP manifesto.
Yeah, the LEAP manifesto was brilliant.
The union in Canada, CUPE National, signed it. The head of the Canadian Labour Congress at the time signed it, as well as dozens of other unions. When we came to the Edmonton Convention with it, we worked through the leader's office to make sure everybody knew it was coming, a federal resolution at a federal convention. And the resolution itself was itself a compromise that just said that riding associations should be able to debate this vision. And 3/4 of our members, our precious members, the renewable energy source of our party, 3/4 of the members on the floor in Edmonton voted for that resolution. So I think I'm the same New Democrat I've always been.
We're over time, but I'm going to give you 20 seconds. Yeah, okay, just 20.
Well, give him a bit to respond, and then I would like 10.
20 and 15.
Okay.
Go
He
ahead.
hasn't spoken enough. You can
No, I did spoke before.
You guys are so polite. Okay, I'm going to go Mr. McQuail. Literally 15 seconds, though. I'm already over time.
I've been saying that we need to throw our arms wide and make sure that people know we want everybody, including disenchanted liberals who've been getting a smoke job in terms of what they think they're voting for, and concerned conservatives who don't like pit bull politics and understand that cooperation actually is a conservative value.
Rob,
That's
you want to
good.
just come in? You're fine. Okay. We are going
But
to
I
move on
like
to the next
the
section if you want to jump in on something.
I like
in
the
next
reference
section.
to the
This is a
League Manifesto
continuation of that
because
one.
it's
I'm going to have
important
to
to be
take some time
talking
out of it.
about
My apologies.
that.
We're going to focus a bit more on how you would deal with this prime minister and this Liberal government. We did
the
see
NDP
another
needs to
floor
be
crosser
a
yesterday
left-wing
from the Conservatives going over
party.
to
It
the
just
Liberals.
does.
It's clear
I'm
that this
sorry.
prime minister would like
That's
to
how
have
it's
a
going to win
majority government.
elections.
So would you find ways to work with Mark Carney and the Liberals
And that
to avoid
was a
an
concerning
election?
moment
And it's
from Rob
45
Ashton
seconds
for me.
each. Tony McQuail, I'll
Because
start with you.
Well, I think we need to come out of this federal leadership campaign strong and united. And I think we have to show him that the New Democrats are a lot stronger. If you want to hit us, this is not the time because we're not down. We have an incredible group of candidates here who've been building the party, and we have to reach out and speak. Come out of this campaign of leadership ready to go into a campaign if he decides that he's going to try and take the opportunistic way out. And I think we have to come in very strong on proportional representation because that's what we need. And we also have to say, if you want to call an election, we're going to call you out for the 2015 lies that you brought in, and we will go to the polls as you again if we end up with a minority.
Thank you, Mr. McQuail. Tanil.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not running to babysit a Liberal government. Definitely running to come out hard and win big in the next election. I tell people all the time that I think I'm probably one of the only folks that's like really excited about the next election. North Island Powell River is so ready for the next election, and we want to get going. And the excitement that we saw across the country in lots of tiny communities all over the place, people are ready. I think there's this misinterpretation that because the last election,
the NDP stands to gain ground in the next election. It's hard to imagine that they
I think a lot of new Democrats are
don't
ready to hit
win
the ground,
back
hit the
to
doors,
at
and
least
get
official
going
party
and really
status.
show what the NDP force is all about.
Abby Lewis.
Well, and as you've seen tonight, the New Democrats are the most polite and constructive of all the parties. You can see it among us tonight. And we will always work with whatever government we can to advance the interests of working class Canadians, to make life better. It is a country awash in wealth. And there is no reason why everyday struggles should be so intense for the 99% of Canadians trying to pay for groceries, trying to put food on the table. 1 in 4 Canadians skipping a meal in order to feed their kids. Mr. Carney understands, he's a bright guy, and he understands that we are at a turning point in human history. And the nation has an appetite for big things. We think he's going in the wrong direction. And we think that the NDP can provide a much healthier direction by doubling down on the ties that bind us, our independent sovereign economy, and the working class lives of Canadians.
Heather McPherson.
The role of New Democrats is to push the government until we become the government. And as a member of parliament, I'm proud of some of the wins that we were able to get out of the last parliament. You know, there are 6 million Canadians across this country that have access to a dentist that did not before because of New Democrats. But what I am seeing from Mark Carney right now is an unwillingness to work with the other parties. You know, I need a prime minister that is defending our public universal healthcare system, and that is not what we are seeing. You know, while Daniel Smith takes the biggest swing at healthcare since Tommy Douglas and the NDP put it in place, and Mark Carney does not defend the Canada Health Act, I can't work with that. When we are laying off public sector employees by the tens of thousands, that is not something I can support.
Okay, thank you. And Rob
good.
Work with Carney. That's funny because Carney's a bigger conservative, I think, than Harper or Mulroney ever were. And so when I'm the leader of the party and we regain all those seats, we're going to be taking out bill by bill. We're going to be standing up for what Canadians want, and that's jobs, housing, and affordability. Because Carney cut 40,000 jobs, 40,000 jobs out of our government. Jobs that people need to help get them into our system. to
I
help
wish the
work with them.
NDP hadn't saved
allows
them at the
privatization to
budget
happen
and let
across
the
the country.
Conservatives play the game that they were
And he
playing.
allows corporate business to steal away.
Because
our
it wouldn't have resulted in an
Okay,
election.
thank you for that. We're now going to move into the debate portion
And it
of
would have been
this
interesting to
final
see how
segment.
that
We do have
happened.
other segments after, but was the confidence and supply agreement to blame for the party's losses in the last election?
Can
And
we
did
please
Canadians
stop
tie
talking
the
about the
NDP
confidence
too
and
closely
supply
to
agreement?
Justin Trudeau's
Please, it
Liberals?
is the
And Mr.
past.
McQuail, we'll
Let's
start with you.
move forward.
That is one of the major problems of being a supportive, an unpowerful supportive member in a minority government. And we saw the same thing happen for the NDP in Ontario. We came up with a bunch of good ideas. The Liberals who were in power implemented our good ideas, and they got all the credit for it in the next election. And it wasn't until they dithered around for 3 years that then they were swept out of power and the NDP came in 1990. So if you're going to go into an agreement, you have to be extremely clear of what you're agreeing to and what you're supporting and what you won't support.
Let me come to you, Ms. McPherson, because you were closely involved in the agreement. If voters did
that's a
punish the
problem.
party for that agreement, how are you the candidate for change?
She's
So
not.
listen,
She's
for me,
not
when
the
I look at
candidate
that
for
agreement
change.
and the
She is
things that
the
we were able to achieve for
continuity
Canadians, I think
candidate.
that's very, very important. But the key piece that we need to fix here is our electoral system. And we do need electoral reform because we should be working together. We should be working for the benefit of Canadians. You know, all politicians should be going to Ottawa to get things done for Canadians. And I understand that my role as an
It's
opposition
true,
member
but
is to
that's
hold the
not what
government accountable. And
happens.
I do that
So
every
you
day.
need to
You know,
act
I'm able to
accordingly.
stand in the House of Commons, and I will be able to stand in the House of Commons the day after this leadership race to actually fight for Canadians. That's what we need to be doing.
Okay,
you know,
but
when
that's
we can get wins for
semantics, like,
Canadians, let's work
come
together.
on.
When we can't, let's
Any
not.
of
But
them can
ultimately,
get one
it is
of the
a
easy
electoral
seats that the
reform that we need
NDP
to be
still
looking at.
has.
It's a time for what Nathan Cullen called violent agreement among us. And Heather, I have to say, listening to your defense of the supply and confidence agreement, I got shivers. It's why you're an incredible MP, and I really respect your leadership. I think what we had there was a failure of communication, a failure to communicate. We were staying in this,
Yes.
as I understand it, we stayed in the supply and confidence agreement so that we could actually get the dental care program implemented. Now, Jagmeet was in a very difficult position because he had to criticize the very unpopular Trudeau government, but at the same time, he was still, and the caucus was still supporting on confidence motions, and Canadians got confused. Are you mad at them or are you supporting them? Because when push comes to shove, you support. And that's because we needed dental care for millions of Canadians to be implemented so the next government couldn't roll it back. But we never said that clearly to Canadians. We need to practice straight talk. And
No, that's
in our country
100%.
and be transparent
That's
about why
true.
we're doing what we're doing. And I just
Avi
want to say
Lewis,
that in
this
terms
is
of
why
the
Avi
political
Lewis is
representation,
going to be the
which we
winner
all
on this
want,
stage.
I've said that if we control the balance of power,
This
in the
answer is
parliament,
why Avi
we will
Lewis
go in
is
with
going to
one
win.
demand and change the electoral system so we have an actual functioning democracy in this country. And we have to let Canadians know that we're going to fight for that because 36% of the popular vote should not lead to absolute power in Ottawa, and we all know it.
Mr. Ashton, let me bring you in on this. You said the NDP got 3 big wins from the agreement, pharmacare, dental care, which everybody, and the anti-scab legislation as well. But the Liberals did take a lot of the credit on that. I think everybody on the stage agrees to that in the last election. As leader of the party, how would you approach the relationship with the Liberals differently?
We're going to demand better for the Canadian workers. We're going to demand better. We're going to be unapologetically loud when we actually make a deal and we get something that we need for Canadians. We're going to be screaming it from the rooftops, to be honest with you. Now, we're going to listen to what Canadians want us to fight us for. And that's jobs, that's housing, that's affordability, and yes, a new electoral system. And this is what we're going to be pushing when I'm leading the NDP. We're going to be pushing for what Canadians want because we're going to be listening to them. We're going to be meeting with them, like Tennille said, where they're at.
I think this is a good leadership
and allow the Carney government
stage.
Or
is kind of the impression that I'm
in the
getting in
wings,
this debate.
Eating our cake and stealing our thunder.
Ms. McPherson, you wanted to get in a moment ago. My apologies.
Oh, no,
Oh,
But I'm happy to talk. I mean, I agree with Rob when he talks about the idea of housing being something that we need to be making sure we're pushing the government on. You know, one of the things that bothered me most about the budget that I voted against in the fall is the fact that there was half the money promised for housing. You know, it is why I brought forward one of the very first platform planks was my housing platform. And it is because we're in the midst of a national housing emergency. And we see this government not taking the breadth of that problem seriously, you know, not dealing with it with the urgency that we see. And that's one example, but there are many examples where this government does not put working class Canadians at the forefront. It is all about corporate interests. It is not about making life better, making life more affordable, making life easier for Canadians from coast to coast to coast.
And Tanil, you just want to jump in quickly.
Communication is absolutely key in all of this. And it's communication every single day, not just around election time. And it's on every platform you can imagine. It's on Instagram, it's on TikTok, it's on Twitch, it's on YouTube, it's on all these different the platform so that we can actually reach a diverse perspective of Canadians. We need to engage our student movement and help us with that. These folks are experts in these arenas and we're not getting the information out there. I bet there's a whole ton of people that have no idea that Carney
like
only funded the housing program half of what it's worth. There's so many people that don't know that we have probably never actually contributed.
I was so unsure about
Canadian
her
Health Act
when
in the
the
way that we're
race
supposed
started,
to as the federal government.
and
There's
I
all
didn't
these
get a
big
good
facts
first
that folks
impression.
don't know, and we're not getting that.
But as the
information out
race
there to
has
them.
gone on,
And when we talk about electoral reform, can we please bring back the per vote subsidy? That $2 a vote will do a lot for our party, and it'll help us get lifted out of
that's
this
a
backward system where we
phenomenal
have the
thing
same
to
amount of
bring up.
votes, almost the same amount of votes as the Bloc Québécois, but we have 7 members and they have 22. We need to fix it.
Mr. McQuail, just short.
Well, the reason we have to rebuild the riding association connection to the party and strengthen our riding associations is based on 45 years of experience. You're never going to be able to communicate through the national media all that you want to communicate or have it come out really accurately. And so we are going to have to rebuild that base of the party, that foundation, and have really good communication so that we can tell our story to our members who can tell it to their neighbors.
Okay, thank you all. I have one final question, and this is a one-word answer, and I know you may disagree with a one-word answer, but I'm going to force it on you. Right now, your party holds 7 seats. We've been discussing that. So let's be clear. Are you running to rebuild this time, or are you running to be prime minister? One word answer. Tanil, you're first.
Rebuild.
Tony.
Prime Minister.
Rob.
Rebuild.
Rebuild.
Be real. Rebuild, of course.
Okay.
More than one word.
Okay, we'll let him have more than one word. So this is our final section. Thank you for all doing that in one word. I thought there might be a little pushback on that, so I do appreciate that. Before we wrap up this evening, I do want to ask this one
I enjoy that
last
Tony
section.
just called it out.
This is our final portion where we ask each person an individual question. And you know what? Somehow I have lost that on my, found it. It's like a journalist's desk up here. I was going to kill time moving those papers around. Tanil, I'm going to start with you on this one. These are, for each contestant, they're tailored to either your experience, to your platform, to your campaign priorities, and you're going to have 1 minute to respond to each one. So Tanil, I am going to start with you.
I enjoy
You've
this
criticized,
kind
and we've
of
even heard
thing
tonight, the
rather than
fundraising
raising
threshold
of the hand
to enter
round
this
or
race.
whatever.
Leadership of a national party requires raising significant resources. Why shouldn't members see that threshold as a test of readiness?
Yeah, I think I'm not deterred away from like a test of readiness as far as being able to fundraise. I think I'm actually quite a good fundraiser when we get down to it, especially in rural ridings. I land very well there because I understand that landscape. I don't necessarily view the landing at the $100,000 as a commitment to the kind of the democracy within our party. EDAs from across the country, we saw them do letter writing campaigns and offer to the party rules that they expected of the leadership race, and also what they thought about about a reasonable cost for a ballot fee. And we weren't seeing that 100,000 six-figure number. We were seeing top around $75,000, and that was really what the membership was pushing. So when we look at our leadership race and running our leadership races, we need to lean into the people of the party, the membership of the party that is this moving machine. They are the movement, and use those recommendations that are coming from our people to structure our leadership race in a way that's really respecting what
I like this as an answer. I'm
Now,
confused as
Abby
to
Lewis,
why
you're
that was her
next.
question.
So here's your question. Your dad was a provincial leader. Your grandfather led the federal party. You describe yourself as an outsider. In what sense?
Well, I think I think maybe I'm a throwback to the NDP of the CCF NDP of my grandpa's era. Think about what Tommy Douglas did with healthcare. It was the same thing. It was a giant idea that was outside the
Back
box.
to those days.
I'm
interested.
for what is considered a serious
Socialist
political
party,
idea by the very
please.
serious people who decide what's serious in this country. I'm advancing solutions as big as the crises we face. And that's what's required in this time. That's what Tommy did with healthcare. And we need to actually get outside of this very, very narrow window, which is what my objection to Carney's leadership is exactly that. He's a smart guy, and he's very popular in Canada right now because he has a diagnosis about where we are in history. We're at a turning point. But what he wants to do is make us into a petrostate that is a militarized petrostate, a junior arms dealer on the world stage. I have a very different vision for Canada, and that's what is outside of maybe the Ottawa bubble, but certainly not outside of our tradition as New Democrats.
Okay, thank you, Abby. Heather, you are next. You are senior member of former leader Jagmeet Singh's team and served as whip during the confidence and supply agreement. Ultimately, there was the party's worst federal results. So why should members see you as change rather
That was a
than
good answer
continuity?
from Abby Lewis.
I want to
by the
start
way.
by just saying
In
how
my
proud I
opinion.
am of what our caucus was able to achieve in the last parliament and the incredible members of parliament that made up our caucus. You know, with 25 members of parliament, we fundamentally changed the direction that our country took on many things. You know, I was the foreign affairs critic, and I am proud of the way that we fundamentally changed our
I
party
wish someone had
and
asked
the
Rob
government
Ashton
on
in
issues
this
around
debate
Palestine,
about why
on
he skipped
Ukraine,
the
on
Palestine
Sudan, on
debate.
Iran. You know, there is a way that we need to push the government of the day until we are the government. And I can tell you, the work I have done in my riding, the work I have done across this country, the record I have of being able to win my seat in Alberta in a hard election proves that I can win, that I know how to do that I've been doing that work, I will continue to do the work, and that is why I am the leader that the New Democrats need right now.
Thank you, Heather. We're going to move over to Rob Ashton now. You say you want to put workers first. I have to mention your campaign did lean on AI to generate answers to questions at one point. I see that. How do you square that with your message about protecting workers from technological disruption?
For the last 10 years as president of the ILW, I spent that time defending my members' jurisdiction against automation, against companies that want to bring in unilateral job cuts, by fighting against the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority and the Canadian government and alongside environmental groups, fighting against Roberts Bank Terminal 2, which is going to be, for all intents and purposes, a fully automated terminal, which will cost 90% of jobs of a conventional terminal, which will force other employers to increase their automation. I'm not
It's not
against
addressing the issue.
automation, as long as automation works for the worker. Like the egg carton factory in Brantford, Ontario that I went to, where they brought in automation and robotics that actually improved workers from 100 jobs to 300 jobs over the time frame.
Okay, thank you. Tony McQuail, you are last
Doesn't
in this
address
section.
the issue, though.
You're entering the race without the same infrastructure or national profile. Now everybody does know who Mr. McQuail is. What is the realistic path for you to see winning, and what does success look like for you if it isn't victory?
Well, Hannah, I've run in a lot of elections. I've always run to win. I maybe haven't always won, but I won 3 school board elections in my own community. And what does success look like? It looks like helping people understand the issues and the needs from a perspective that maybe they aren't already hearing. So that's one success. I always, when I get into an election, have a tiered series of what does success look like, and the whole stair steps. You ask the question, what am I running for? I want to be prime minister because I want to work with these people on the ideas they have to move this country forward. And, you know, when I first sent out my email, most of my friends said, are you crazy? But, you know, your ideas give us hope. And I'm feeling pretty despairing.
That's how I feel about Tony.
I had no idea to get to this stage.
But it really is. I like him.
And the fact that
I like him, guys. What can I say? I like Tony McQuail.
Go forward with some hope.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's a
thank you all
phenomenal
for that.
answer.
That was
For
our final
hope
section.
is a great
Just bump
slogan
onto
as
the
well.
right side there if you didn't see that. Before we wrap this evening, of course, we're going to hear one more time from each of our contestants. I think everybody just took a sigh of relief right now. I think I felt it up here. So we're going to hear 45 seconds from each of you. And actually, Tony, you're first again. Okay. 45 seconds to you.
Okay. Well, my friends, if we are to meet the current challenges as a party, a country, and a people, we need bold change. We need the skills and talents of all these candidates working to rebuild our movement and share our vision with Canadians. This is a lot to ask of one person. Canadian Quakers have gone from having a single clerk to having a clerk's table with a team approach to leadership. And I would suggest, as part of redesigning how we do things, perhaps it's time to have a leaders' table to share the work and the wisdom. We need a shared vision that resonates with Canadians. I hope that our holistic
Similar to how your
Canada
party is doing
could be
it in
that
the UK
vision,
right now.
and that it could be worked on by the team that you have before you. Let's have a leaders'
I
table.
just said I like this
Tony
leadership
McQuail,
team.
thank you
Guys,
kindly for those final thoughts.
this
Neil
is
Johnston, you're next.
he says
Yeah,
what
as
I'm
an Indigenous
thinking.
woman, as a social worker, I bring a different perspective to this race, and I understand the urgency for change. I've witnessed day in, day out how the capitalist system consistently and deliberately fails our communities. The leadership race is about change. It's about
I
the
like
next
to Neil
chapter of the
Johnston
NDP.
calling out the
and
capitalist
one
system's
that isn't
evils.
afraid to leave fully and boldly with its values. I'm not here for a promotion. I'm here to drive change. I'd love for you to join me in whatever platform works for you, whether it's email, Facebook, Mastodon, you name it, come join me. Tonight, I'm asking you to stand with me and lend me, to Neil Johnston, your first choice vote, and let's get to work.
Neil, thank you kindly. Rob Ashton, you're next.
We need to rebuild the NDP. We need to rebuild the trust that working class people may have lost in us.
I like
We
Neil
have to bring
Johnston
voters
too.
back. How?
I like them all, but
Bold solutions that impact their daily lives. By taxing the rich, cutting taxes on the working class, rebuilding industries, investing in industries, but investing in job creation. By building homes that Canadians can afford with Canadian workers and Canadian
the first time in
materials.
this
And that's why
debate I've heard someone talk
take our
about cutting
power back,
taxes on the
to
working
bring the
class. I
NDP
like
back
that.
to its roots.
While increasing
and
them
offer
on the
real hope.
rich.
Thank you,
Because
Rob.
I'm the leader that listens. I'm the leader that's going to push our membership's decisions. And I'm the leader that will deliver.
Thank you. I'm sorry for interrupting. That was
It's all good.
you kept going.
I take long pauses sometimes.
It was a long pause. I appreciate you. Okay, Abby Lewis, you're next.
Despite a few dim sparks that flew tonight, I am looking forward to getting work with my colleagues, 4 fantastic New Democrats on stage tonight. But here's why our campaign is different. You're not just voting for me, you're voting for a whole new approach, a movement that we are building together to stop the ongoing genocide in Gaza now, for public options, a wealth tax, a Canadian Green New Deal. When Tommy Douglas and the NDP fought for Medicare, we heard all the same things. It's too radical. We won't be taken seriously. It can't be done. But Tommy knew it was what a supermajority of Canadians wanted, the kind of Canada we deserve. This is how we rebuild now. This is how we start winning. And this is how we transform the country for the many, not the money.
See, I waited a second so I didn't interrupt you. Thank you, Abby Lewis. I learned from Rob Ashton, Heather McPherson.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you for the discussion this evening. You know, New Democrats fight for what matters. It's because of the NDP that we have public health care, that we have pensions, that we have enshrined workers' rights.
I was
that
good
we
for
have a
Bobby
strong
Lewis.
public service. So many of the things that define us as Canadians, things that separate us from the United States, are there because of New Democrats. We have a responsibility to live up to that and win more seats so that we can do even more for people. I have a plan, I have a record, and I have the energy to hold this government accountable until we are government. I'm not getting ready to do this work. I am already doing it. And with your support, I know we can win more seats. We can do even more for Canadians.
It's that energy from her that's
Thank
like
you, Ms.
she
McPherson.
thought she
Thank you
should
to
get it
all of the
because she's the
candidates
only
on this
caucus
stage. I
member
truly
running.
appreciate you allowing me to
That
moderate the debate.
is hard
Before we
for
sign
me.
off, though, I want to acknowledge something that is truly important. Now, in these debates, I want to thank each of you, the contestants, for putting yourself out there, putting forward your vision for in a political arena. Running for leadership is not easy. I can't imagine being on your side of the podium. It requires courage, it requires conviction, and a willingness to stand up for what you believe in, knowing that you're going to be tested here as well. These are the 5 candidates who will appear on the leadership ballot to be the next leader of the New Democratic Party. So thank you all for putting your name forward. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes as well. There are teams here, there are teams behind there that put this all together. So thank you kindly for doing that. It's very important for a good public discourse. Voting opens on March 9th. NDP members can vote online, by telephone, or by mail if they have requested that option. A new leader will be announced on March 29th in Winnipeg. One of these 5 here will become the new leader of the New Democrat Party. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.
All right.
Thank you.
So that was the NDP leadership race debate, the final one of this race. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Here's where we're going to go from here in covering this. I am going to end this live stream in just a moment because I'm pretty wiped. And I think that it's important after these kinds of things to digest a little bit on what we saw. So that's what I'm going to do. Probably next week, I will put out a video summarizing my thoughts of the debate and the race as a whole and announcing what just happened. Okay. Summarizing my thoughts on the debate and the race as a whole and giving my ballot preferences that I will be ranking on my leadership ballot and suggesting that you do the same. So that's going to be the plan going forward. We'll do another video probably this weekend, not on the NDP leadership race, but on another political news event. And we're going to keep going forward, covering all of these kinds of things and political news going forward because I'm Noam and this is political.